Hello, and welcome to another fully live Friday episode of Hacking with Friends. My name is Kody Kinsey. I'm a security researcher at Varonis, and today I have my good friend and fellow hacker Alex here to help go over the hacking news of the week. And first, a shout out to everybody in the chat. Good to see you, Dinkelberg, and everybody else who is in the chat live. If you have any questions about what we're going through, we will try to drop through an answer. And if you have any comments, feel free to leave them as well, because we will be checking throughout the chat. Wow, we have had an incredibly busy week. We went ahead and did our first live stream on Hack5 with a guest. And who was it, Alex?
Darren Kitchen.
Darren Kitchen himself. So sometimes when we post videos on Hack5, people are like, "You're not Darren." And it's kind of it's as though I've been caught in a stranger's house, it almost feels like. But finally, we got to have Dad himself on the stream, Darren. Papa Darren from Hack5, who created Hack5 himself. And it was great. We really had a lot of fun. There's lots of awesome Hack5 tools that have come out recently, and it was cool getting to see some of the community payloads also that have been submitted. So it's great to be going live on Hack5 and on Security Forward. If you missed it, you can check it out on Hack5, and you can also check out the next one on Tuesday, where we will be going over all of your questions. So if you have any questions for the upcoming stream, please make sure to drop them on the YouTube video, and we will make sure to answer them on Hack5 in front of, I guess, like 800,000 people in order to make sure your question gets answered. So yeah, make sure you do that. We had lots of fun, and if you missed it, make sure to watch the replay. So we also had another Hack5 video come out this week, and I really like it. I think it did a really good job. So if we switch over to my screen real quick, you can see the Hack5 video that we released, which is, can Wireshark spot hidden cameras for free? So on this video, we went ahead and used one of these very wonky hidden camera detectors that you can get off of Amazon. And these things are a little weird looking, as you can see. They look like they have multiple proboscis, I'll say that. And the way that you're supposed to use them is not totally clear here. So we just set Michael loose trying to find a hidden camera. There was a couple great moments of him walking around with this hidden camera detector and attempting to find where it was. And in the end, I was able to fake him out by hiding a router in a cupboard. And this thing went crazy and started beeping and everything. And it really thought something was there. But the weakness of this device was kind of that it wasn't able to tell the difference between, like a leaky power outlet or, something that was a router or an IoT device that had nothing to do with being a hidden camera. Now, in our Wireshark example, we had Alex stalking around the living room, attempting to find out where a suspicious device was by signal strength. And we used the MAC address to look for devices that were, maybe from a manufacturer that makes cameras. And in this case, you can see Alex closing in on the source by the signal strength. Alex, can you explain how that works?
Yeah, so typically Wireshark is used for just sniffing wireless traffic and stuff like that, but you can also use it to look for specific devices or packets that are being emitted or stuff like that. So in this case, we were looking at the packet headers to find something that had the MAC address resembling a specific camera type that we were looking for. And I was also able to correlate the signal strength field, which is the RSSI that tells us how close or far away we are from a device that's emitting packets, in order to track it down. So Wireshark has this great feature called the IO graph, which allows you to plot certain parameters on a graph, in which case I tuned it to plot the signal strength on the y-axis of a specific MAC address, which would be the camera that we were tracking down. So basically, as I got closer or further away from this camera, I was able to see it on, in this case, a logarithmic graph that shows us a more, just a stronger indication of how close I am or far away I am from this device.
And this can kind of be applied to any Wi-Fi device as well, or any device that's emitting Wi-Fi radio signals. You can use Wireshark to kind of lock onto that signal, write a filter that only shows that one particular device, and then start monitoring the signal strength as you move around the room. And there were some really good questions on this video asking, could you use a directional antenna? And yes, absolutely. That would really speed up this process if you use a directional antenna. But because we didn't want people being like, hey, that's not free, we just wanted to use the omnidirectional antenna in the computer to show how easy it is to track down the location of a radio device, a Wi-Fi device, just using your computer and the radio that's built in. So really cool episode. If you want to check out how the free tool Wireshark stacks up to a $69.99 tool, a dollar tool on Amazon for hunting down spy cameras, you can check out this episode and hopefully ask us some questions, which we'll answer on the next stream. And I also like to go over things that I think are just really great resources. And this one popped up. This is a breach compilation that I went over years ago called Hate Mail. And it basically is able to take an email address and then link you to different breaches that were disclosed for this particular email address. So think of this as, have I been pwned? But instead of telling you you've been pwned, it shows you the password. So I was able to put my mom's email in, and I found 5 of her passwords, and they are disgusting, which is actually kind of funny.
Nice.
Yeah, so for one, just having swears in your password doesn't mean that someone won't get it, Mom. And for 2, it's pretty crazy to be able to use this tool to look at actual breaches that are out there and see passwords that are connected with specific email accounts. And of course, an attacker could use this to get a feel for how the potential victim chooses their passwords based on previous passwords, or potentially they might be able to execute some sort of phishing attack. I've definitely seen phishing attacks where someone will email me with one of my old passwords in the subject line to like try to scare me. And that's something that also happens as a result of this. And of course, for self-audit, if you want to see which of your, if you have a lot of space, because this is, I think it was like multiple gigabytes of storage is required to download this breach compilation. But, if you're interested in seeing what passwords of yours might have been breached, then Hate Mail indeed was a really awesome tool. And this is an old Nullbyte video, I believe. But yeah, this really got a lot of attention and was retweeted earlier this week. And I was just like, yeah, that is a great tool. People should know about that. So I also have, if you're interested in Micropython, there's a full-fledged Micropython simulator in browser that has like wiring and code simulation and all this stuff. So if you've been wanting to get started with Micropython and you haven't had a good opportunity to do so with hardware, this is, not quite as much fun as the real thing, but it definitely still works. And you can learn and practice before you get an actual board using this really awesome little online resource. So
That's cool.
Yeah, right. I like it. I think that these sorts of simulators are really cool. Of course, I really do advocate for actual like cheap hardware if you can get it, because it's really a lot of fun.
I actually wanted to make like a virtual like Wi-Fi nugget so I could just develop like software for it on the go without having to actually have a physical one. But it'd be cool to see if there's like a plugin or something where you could import other CircuitPython devices.
It would be really nice to also just completely eliminate like hardware and wiring as like a source of problems, like when writing code, and just know that like, hey, like it works in the simulator. I know that it might be wiring or maybe this particular board that's not working properly. Yeah, seems useful. So I also just want to give another shout out. I know I give lots of shout outs to Objective-C, but they are such a cool project for anybody that uses a macOS computer, or if you know someone that does. One of their tools called BlockBlock, which I do indeed use, has a feature called notarization mode. So that makes it so that non-notarized code just doesn't execute, and you get the opportunity to see what's going on and block it if it's suspicious. And this is a really, really cool way of being able to block malware that hasn't even officially been patched. So this could basically stop a 0-day piece of malware in its tracks because it needs to do certain things in order to run. And one of those is usually run some non-notarized code. So while this can potentially cause a little bit of disruption, when you're running scripts, I would say if I got this pop-up that said Bash is attempting to run a non-notarized script and I wasn't doing anything related to Bash, I would be very alarmed. And I would know that somebody had executed a malicious Bash script somewhere and that there was an issue. And if I clicked on Ancestry, I could see like where specifically it was coming from. I could send it to VirusTotal and see if it gets a hit. This is just a really great free tool for anybody who might be worried that a piece of malware slips by them and then starts to install something. This has the ability to stop things before patches come out. And I think that's really awesome and really cool that it's free. All right. So last week in our news stream, we covered a little bit about wiper attacks on Ukraine. So wipers are very similar and kind of related to ransomware, but the goal here isn't to get money. It's instead to just destroy as much stuff as possible. So in these attacks, it seems as though Russian state-backed actors were deploying malware that wasn't designed to make money. It was just designed to encrypt everything and make it inaccessible and basically destroy the data. Now, this got flooded with responses like this that are basically saying a bunch of stuff about the political situation and the invasion and whatever else, which I personally don't think that we actually covered. I think we just covered cyber attacks. So it's interesting to know that if you title something or if you say something about this conflict right now, there's a lot of bots and other, and some of them are just people, but also bots that are directing lots of comments at any sort of media addressing this. So it's interesting to see that my own content has received a lot of just bot spam and other things related to Russia, just because we've covered a couple topics on it last week. So just very interesting to see how much like bot spam and other stuff is being kind of directed around like this specific topic, because it's difficult to make content on this that doesn't get flooded with some sort of discourse now. And a lot of this is, again, just automated stuff that's being directed towards anything that matches certain keywords, but still very, very sketchy. And then this is just probably my favorite thing I've seen all week, a leaked chat between Trickbot operators. They can't figure out how to get out of Vim. And they also, I really enjoy the fact that they call it a parasite. How to close this parasite? Looks like the keyboard shortcut doesn't work on the remote server, and they're just stuck in Vim. And the ransomware operators have to kind of help each other out to get them out of Vim on the remote server. It's, you know, Nanos just closes so easily. You just get used to it. You know, Vim, not so much. You got to right quit. But
even
yeah,
the most advanced of us
still have issues with Vim. Yeah. So if you're still having trouble with Vim, just know that, you know, infamous criminal organizations known for their technical expertise are still struggling to quit Vim as we speak. And then our first piece of news, just something kind of interesting. The Belarusian cyber partisans seem to have staged an attack against the rail network in Belarus in an attempt to sabotage the ability of the Russian military to get trains full of all of their gear to the border. This has come as there's been a lot of backlash against Belarus for their role in the invasion. And you can see that even groups that are claiming to be inside the country are carrying out strikes designed to disrupt or make it difficult for Russians to move gear across the country. So kind of an interesting note that also they were using Windows XP. So that might have been a factor in why this was able to happen. But we have seen some official reporting on this. This was being reported from, they actually have a Twitter account. So if you want to check out the Belarusian cyber partisans, they're claiming responsibility for this attack. And interesting to see when a lot of these groups that are showing up in the news also just happen to have Twitter accounts. It's a little strange. Yes. All right, Alex, what have you got?
Okay, over here I've pulled up news on a new reskinning of the Teabot malware, which was initially, or rather a banking Trojan that was initially spread through, I think, like smishing attacks or something like that, targeting some pretty high profile companies, like you can see European banks and other targets like that. But now they've basically reskinned how this malware is spread. As you can see, it's also a Android, it's specific for Android platforms. But now they are hiding this malware inside of various apps that you can just download directly from the Android Play Store. They look pretty inconspicuous. So this one is just a regular QR code and barcode scanner that looks like a regular app you download. You can see a little snapshot here. But basically, after installing the app, it asks you to install a second app with a similar name, which is the QR code scanner add-on. This looks completely inconspicuous. It's something you'd probably click on if you saw this after downloading your QR code scanner. But after this, it goes ahead and installs the Teabot Malware Trojan, which then reports various user information like screen sharing, and other actions to their remote C2 server. And funny enough, it got like a lot of good reviews since most people were able to legitimately use this as for its intended purpose. So I just thought that was funny.
Yeah, it just goes to show that like if you do like the job of the app, like just a little bit better than like the really terrible other free apps, then like you know, people might not notice that it's doing all this malicious stuff and end up giving it a nice review, which is funny that people are putting their time and energy into like leaving positive feedback for something that's literally attacking them.
Right, and they have no clue.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's all I have on this one.
All right, so over on my screen, do you know who Reality Winner is?
No.
So Reality Winner is a former intelligence specialist who was put into prison for leaking information. And what's interesting is, all right, so Reality Winner has a verified Twitter account, and that in and of itself is a target because people with verified Twitter accounts are often used as a proxy for launching attacks against other people. So it's a little bit strange here because this person is obviously, you can look, there's a Wikipedia article, like obviously this is a pretty like controversial person, but my opinion is like, I think that it was just the Twitter verified account that got attacked in this case because it was immediately used to target journalists and other people by changing the name, not to pretend to be Reality Winner, but instead changing it to be Feedback Team Verified. So this is the kind of attack where a threat actor will get access to some random verified Twitter account and then change the name to make it look like it's officially affiliated with Twitter. Now, this creates the illusion that Twitter has verified this official account and makes it easier for them to launch phishing accounts against other people. So in this case, even though the attack was against someone pretty notable, it doesn't seem like that was the actual target. It seems like the actual target was simply the verified status. So this is a really interesting way that threat actors will abuse a verification system like Twitter's verification system to make it look as though a verified help account is reaching out to you and attempting to get you to do a password reset or something else. So you might have been tipped up by the realize puff handle, but because that's not very official for the official feedback team.
They couldn't have picked anything better.
Yeah, but you can see this is the message that was being sent out as a DM. Hi, dear user, and I'm sorry, but the dear user is immediately a big red flag to me. I don't know why, but whenever they add the dear, I'm just like, this is something's up. Something's going on.
Too personal.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't like it.
Like an American company would have just been like user, or something like that. Anyway, copyright infringement has been detected on in one of the shares on your account. This is also, it's called a tweet. If you think copyright infringement is wrong, you need to provide feedback. Otherwise, your account will be removed within 48 hours. You can give feedback at the link below. Thank you for your understanding. Thanks, Twitter support. Okay, so if that was like an ice skating routine, I would give that like a out of 10, like maybe like a 6.5. Like there was a little, it was a little weak, but they got the point across. Maybe a 7. What would you give it?
I'd give it like a 4.
Really?
Yeah. The username's alarming. The dear user's like way too intimate. And then the fact that they also don't have like a twitter.com domain, like why would an official Twitter account like have to use
the
sites.google.com?
Okay, that is a pretty good point. Okay, so when you go to this, you can see that it has embedded HTML frames that make it look as though it's going to Twitter, but in fact, it's actually just trying to steal your credentials. So this is a credential harvesting attack going after media companies. This is going after journalists and other people who might be fooled into thinking like, oh no, like something that I posted, some piece of media I posted is causing some sort of infringement. And this is, again, a confidence attack that's based on compromising verified accounts and making it appear as though you're being contacted by a verified account. So what should you do? Well, if you get contacted by an account with a really weird handle, then you should probably, not reply to like Buckrucker69 with your credentials, or like go to a website that they give you that's a Google Sites or some other weird link with your credentials. Like even if it says verified and the account name seems to make sense, if it's some random handle like at something weird, then you probably should not be sending that information to any sort of link that they provide, because that is not an official account and you are getting phished.
Yep. Oh yes, my favorite website, begetomoder.tk.
Ah, yes.
Yeah.
/ jury. Yeah, my favorite section. If you haven't checked that out, make sure you do.
I sure will.
All right, so this is super fascinating. We have been talking about disinformation in very modern ways when it comes to the Russia conflict, because we have the ability now to use GANs in order to create faces that look remarkably real. So Alex, does anything come to mind when you think about generated faces?
The fact that there's like 20 of them on my computer for some reason.
Yeah.
That you downloaded. And besides that, not really.
Yeah, and how did they come across to be?
They look like at a first glance like deceivingly real, but then when you start looking at like the individual like details and like features of the person, you're like, what the heck is going on here?
Yeah, so do you know where they came from though? Like the source of them?
Oh, it's usually like a mashup of different faces, but I don't know if there's like a repository.
There's a website.
Oh.
This person does not exist?
Oh yeah, you showed me this before.
Yeah. Okay, so this can you pull it up on your screen while I do this? So This person does not exist is a website that basically creates faces that look really real, but they are a generative adversarial network. So what that means is there's an AI that's playing a game with another AI. And one of them, the generator, will create something that's supposed to look like a face. And the second one, a discriminator, will attempt to tell the difference between a real face and a generated face. And they will play this game over and over and over, adapting their strategy, trying to get better and better until the generator can create something that the discriminator cannot tell the difference between a real face and a fake face. And that is when you have a successful result. So it's kind of cool because you're pitting two computers against each other and making them fight each other in order to get a really great result. And I love computers, fighting each other instead of us. So I support this kind of strategy. So if we,
Oh god. Okay, if you switch over to my screen, you can see this weird, like, infantized, middle-aged man missing a tooth. But yeah,
so this person, as the website name suggests, does not exist. And if
Thank
you
God.
go ahead and refresh it,
oh,
and we can just keep on refreshing and keep on getting other people that do not exist. So there are problems. Like, for example, it's not so good with like features around the eyes. It's not so good with earlobes. It's actually really, really bad with earlobes, and it makes really scary teeth. So if you are looking to try to discriminate against like a real one and a fake one, a human can do a much better job than I guess the discriminator in this case. But this technique gives anybody who wants to create disinformation the ability to have a completely unique face that has not been used anywhere else. And other types of techniques can be used to take this fake face and move it around, apply it as kind of like a skin to a skeleton to be able to like make it look as though someone's talking. Although oftentimes these are shared on very low resolution videos. One thing you can expect also is it's pretty easy to create these sort of fake things in low resolution. Once you get to high resolution, like moving around and doing talks and stuff, like that's where the limit tends to still be. But lower resolution stuff for profile pictures, that is absolutely possible. And it looks like that is one thing that happened here. So this is a account that is claiming to be a Ukrainian journalist. And it looks as though this picture was generated by a GAN. So that means that somebody deliberately created this fake face and this fake persona in order to make it so it appears as though there's this person who's putting out legitimate information about Ukraine. And what I love is the microphone and then whatever is going on right here.
I also love the floating hair tuft.
Oh yes, the floating hair tuft. Yeah. So there's obviously a couple errors here, but unless if you were just to look at this at profile image size, it would probably not be super obvious. Now, like again, we spot GANs all day because we love using these pictures for registering profiles and stuff like that. It makes it so it's more difficult for your face to be used as a way of identifying you because lots of these companies will do facial recognition and group people together. So this is just a tactic that lots of people will use in order to obfuscate the person really owning the account. But we see that these are starting to happen more and more in the conflict with Ukraine. And you can see the way that sometimes these are compiled and generated in order to create an intermediary face from the generative adversarial network. It's a really, really cool process. But again, this is part of misinformation, creating a plausible, unique image of a person that's constructed from like lots of different other faces. So really, really weird. Also to see that the maintenance of this account has not been very clean. So this lady's journalism is mostly just retweeting a bunch of other stuff or just completely copying other people's work in order to gain legitimacy. But if you go back far enough, you can also see that this account was also used under a different handle. So it set up a completely different persona and instead claimed to reside in Arkansas.
Interesting.
So this has been something that was spreading misinformation about Ukraine. It was spreading misinformation when it was pretending to be in Arkansas. And it's just like very, very strange. Yeah, the floating tufts of hair. It's very strange to see in real life what one of these accounts that's been dressed up to look like a real journalist has been used for. So previously, somebody created this account, was using it to be some guy in Arkansas, and then a switch was flipped, and suddenly this some guy in Arkansas is now a female journalist in Ukraine, putting out information and attempting to capitalize on the credit that this guy in Arkansas has been building by using this account over and over and over. So, I mean, this is another example of almost like a confidence attack, where rather than going after a verified account, this person has been, whoever it is, has been building up kind of credit on this account in almost an automated fashion for a long time, and then switched it over to an ongoing offensive operation the second that the situation demanded it. So be really careful with your news sources. It is relatively easy to stand up sources like this, and if you are just somebody taking a look at an account like this, looks like it's been suspended. Yes. But taking a look at an account like this and trying to decide whether or not you should trust a story that was shared by them, I mean, to the average person, I don't think there's enough red flags to really, make this stand out. So this is one of those really good disinformation campaigns that you have to watch out for while doing research about what's happening in Ukraine, because there's lots of attempts to make disinformation really easy to consume. And if you're not being a super critical consumer of information, then you could mess up and start sharing disinformation that's part of a nation state campaign with other people, which would make you look like a big idiot. So make sure to go through the information you're sharing. Make sure to look for accounts like this. And this is just a really great write-up. So if you want to see more information on how you can spot accounts like this, then check out this thread that I've retweeted on my Twitter at Kody Kinsey. All right, over to you.
Cool. Kind of pertinent. So disinformation is obviously pretty bad, but it happens on like both sides of the aisle, I guess. One of the things that I think is terrible is people taking advantage of, I guess, just like the current wartime benevolence, like people that are trying to support Ukraine and stuff like that. So there's people that are pushing out like fake Bitcoin wallets and other stuff like that, like purporting that they're in support of Ukraine. And they've generated like a lot of profit from this. So you can see there's a ton of different crypto donation scams that are on the rise. I didn't get to look through all of these exactly, but if you reference this article on Bleeping Computer, they show some of the different sites to look out for, although there are actual campaigns that are being run by the Ukrainian government for like Ethereum and Bitcoin wallets and stuff like that that you can donate to. But I think that's pretty terrible to take advantage of that.
It makes the whole situation confusing. And of course, for COVID-19, the first thing that phishing people did was pretend to be official government sources or other people like pushing out like apps that you needed to download or whatever else. So like this is a pretty common technique to like use ongoing events to go after anybody who wants to help and doesn't know the right place to reach out to.
Yeah, it's pretty terrible stuff. And then just another piece of news. We've talked about Telegram before, which we've seen used as like a C2 thing that like different threat actors use, just because it's like not necessarily anonymized, but like not policed enough. And there's news of like various Russian actors or people that are trying to evade being monitored by Russia that are within the country that use Telegram just to avoid having their stuff being snooped on. But Telegram is being used for various stuff, like for instance, creating different online groups that are spreading disinformation, hosting some of these Bitcoin scams, as well as also organizing attacks as well. So I thought that was just kind of interesting. Yeah.
A lot of people also don't realize that the default settings on Telegram, as far as I am aware, like are they not encrypted?
I don't think so.
I think that you have to select like an encrypted conversation with someone. So like, yeah, I just hear a lot of feedback from people that like don't understand how to use it for its intended purpose, that they think is just automatically encrypted when in fact it's not. Don't quote me on that though.
Yeah.
Just a little alarming to hear that it's being used to like coordinate attacks.
Yeah, it's like, also being used to just like push a lot of propaganda and other stuff like that. That's just like completely wrong. Yeah. So
if we switch over to my screen, one really interesting thing about this war is that there are a lot of SDR stations, software-defined radio stations all over Ukraine. And typically one would expect in a war like this that communications would be encrypted. They would be at the very least encoded. But in fact, it seems like a lot of the Russian soldiers have been using analog radios or radios that are not really encrypted at all. And that has allowed amateur radio operators to listen in on the situation from the perspective of people radioing each other with highly insecure communications. A lot of this seems to be that regular Russian soldiers can't get back to command, and they can't use the communications they have to make contact with the people they need to. But this is a really interesting kind of OSINT look at the way that these open source kind of collection hubs have been used to get a view of what's going on the ground, based on the fact that these communications are not encrypted and just available for anybody in range to listen in on. So if you want to hear a little bit about what's been going on from these intercepted radio communications, you can check this out on this Twitter thread here. But again, really interesting to see how a lot of the information, and again, this could be disinformation, is coming from radio transmissions which are not properly encoded and are just using kind of common cheap radios in order to communicate. Again, not discounting the fact that this could just be information that's put out in order to confuse people. So then another thing is, it's been pretty controversial to support Ukraine if you have connections with Russia, but there are countries who are going forward with this and then are getting some pushback from this in terms of cyber attacks that are focusing their attempts to reach out to Ukraine. So these spear phishing attacks are typically going after Ukrainian service member accounts that have been compromised or otherwise had access gained to them. And they are attempting to reach out to people who are trying to help Ukraine as Ukrainian soldiers or Ukrainian service people, and instead pushing phishing attacks and other things designed to punish those who are attempting to help. So by attacking the accounts of Ukrainian military members, it makes it easier to, with an official account, get somebody on the other side who really wants to help out to open a document that they really shouldn't. So this is an interesting attack vector and probably a very successful one at convincing those who want to help Ukraine that they're really legitimately in touch with somebody who needs their support and is sending over critical information that they need to open. So pretty sneaky attack. And again, designed to punish those who are attempting to help Ukraine by making it uncertain as to how to get in touch with someone who's really the person they say they are when they're able to compromise these Ukrainian service member accounts. Alex?
I actually had a similar article pulled up, but it was just interesting to see like what sectors they're trying to attack. Wait, this might actually be a different write-up, but in the same vein. Hackers that are trying to target European officials to get information on Ukrainian refugees. So it seems they're trying to target specific sectors of government. For instance, this one that has intelligence about like how refugees are coming in and out of the country, other operations and stuff like that. But you can see they are staging various attacks in order to gain intelligence on these groups.
Using Lua.
Yeah, I hate Lua, by the way.
Hey.
Yeah, have you ever used Lua? It's trash.
I've tried to use Lua. So Lua is a programming language developed in Brazil that is good for like embedded devices and then some other stuff. And people have opinions about it. I will, for the sake of the stream, be neutral. Alex is not.
Yeah, but you can see here they use a macro embedded document of some sort that's delivered over email that downloads like a executable MSI file on vulnerable Windows machines, which then installs like a Lua stager that then starts sending information to their C2 servers. And you can see it's supposedly linked to the following Belarusian nation state group UNC 1151. Yeah, so like there have been a lot of different reports about like Belarusian linked cyber groups launching these sorts of attacks. Like ever since the Ukraine invasion has started, we've seen some of these Belarusian linked groups engaging in like spear phishing attacks and other sorts of things against those who are trying to support Ukraine. So that's interesting. They seem pretty ambivalent because like I think we took a look at a piece of news that was like them defending the opposite side too. So that's pretty strange.
Oh, no. Those were the cyber partisans.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, so like this is like an intelligence apparatus of the official Belarusian government, which is quite authoritarian. And then the other one was a bunch of like punk hackers that identified themselves as cyber partisans, which is absolutely not like on the same team.
I was kind of confused about their stance.
Yeah. So it seems like the like hacktivist groups are trying to disable the railway systems while the state intelligence people are attempting to attack other states that are helping Ukraine.
Dang.
Okay, so if we switch over to my screen, we have an attack against a very unique company. So Toyota was one of the first companies to really lean into something called just-in-time production. I think I explained that to you one time. Do you remember what it is?
I don't remember what that is.
So just-in-time production is a production model that aims to be as lean and efficient as possible by having like a very like sensitive system that's always pulling new resources in just as it needs it, never before. So you're never left sitting up on a bunch of stock if something goes wrong, but the system has to be perfectly tuned and everything has to be working as one in order for that to work. Now, the benefit of a just-in-time system is like you never consume more resources than you need. You're incredibly lean. And if you can maintain it, then it's a really, really efficient system to go with. And Toyota is extremely famous for having this just-in-time system they implemented, and their manufacturing process is really famous among people who are like business nerds for how incredibly like focused it is on this specific type of model. They've really like gone all out on it. Now, the worst possible thing that can happen in a just-in-time system is having one of your suppliers suddenly shut down. Because with a just-in-time system, you're not buying hordes of product. You're basically only consuming things on a need-only basis. You don't have a giant stockpile of things waiting for you if something goes wrong and one of those parts suddenly becomes unavailable. And that's really the big vulnerability in something like this. So it seems as though a Toyota supplier was attacked that was able to completely shut down Toyota's production at a number of different plants. That translates to 13,000 units not being produced. So that's 5% drop in Toyota's monthly production in the entire country of Japan. So the just-in-time lean manufacturing approach is, again, like a really great thing when everything is integrated and you're able to pull stock when you need it. If suddenly you're not able to pull stock anymore, you can have devastating consequences for companies that are trying to be as efficient as possible, like Toyota. So it's, I studied Toyota as a business model, and I'm aware of how vulnerable they are to these sorts of disruptions. Because for a company that is incredibly fast and lean, it also has problems with being nimble in the face of a disruption like this that kind of crashes the system that they built. So a very unfortunate turn of events for a very interconnected process that Toyota had set up, because again, this isn't even a Toyota, it's just at one of their primary suppliers.
On a small scale, we're kind of doing, I guess, JIT production with the nuggets.
Mm-hmm.
We also face that with like one or another like supply being out or having to compensate for that. Yeah.
Yep, trying to be as lean as possible is an admirable goal, but you place a lot of trust in your suppliers. And if you can't create like a good push-pull system where you're able to pull down stock when you need it, then suddenly you're left in a position where you don't have what you need and you just gotta wait and just waste time. And that, as the Japanese would say, is muda. Waste.
I have no clue what that means.
It's from the Toyota way. I had to read like the whole book. But anyway, moving on to another topic. You want to
go? Sure.
Cool.
All right, Nvidia data breach exposed credentials of over 71,000 employees. So Nvidia was basically breached, and various attackers are trying to extort data out of them, specifically trying to get them to like open source various drivers and other stuff like that. And they were also threatening to release some information that they had gained after compromising the company. You can see that it's tied to the Lapsus dollar sign expression. All right. But they seem to back off a little bit after, I think, Nvidia. I think that was pretty ironic. What Nvidia did was, in some of the information I think they released like back to the group, they embedded their own like malware or something like that. So then subsequently the group backed off a little bit and asked a little bit less of Nvidia. I think they just asked them to like open source their drivers.
Okay, so what happened was, in order to gain access to the remote server, the device that they were logging in with and gaining all the information and kind of like storing it over to needed to be enrolled in the device management software. So like the attackers like created a virtual device, enrolled it, and then we're able to pull down all the information to it and have all the information stored in this like virtual bucket. But then Nvidia was just like, screw you guys, and use the device management feature to encrypt all the data on that virtual device. So you know how when you would like enroll like a business laptop or whatever, like your business can technically like lock it down if it ever gets stolen. Nvidia basically had that set up, which is a good idea, and then had access to the attacker's virtual machine through that device management setting. And then use it to encrypt it so that they ruined a lot of the data that the attackers had exfiltrated. And the attackers were just like, yeah, whatever, like we had a backup. Those guys suck. But it kind of seems like maybe they actually didn't have a backup of everything, because it looks as though their demands got a little weirder as soon as that happened.
I didn't see what they like de-escalated it to, but like,
okay, I'll tell you. They were just like, we want you to remove the restrictions on mining cryptocurrency on the Nvidia. Yeah, so like instead of money, they're just like, we'll stop this. Like if you make it possible for people to mine cryptocurrency without like restrictions on it, because currently there's like restrictions built in on the performance of those for specifically mining cryptocurrency.
Crypto nerds were just like eating up those Nvidia GPUs, and there was like a huge shortage and everything.
Yeah, so they were just like, we'll make something that's like basically useless for you crypto nerds, and then the crypto nerds apparently are striking back.
Nice. I won't say I entirely like endorse this, but like Nvidia should kind of open source. It kind of sucks to have like a laptop that has like an Nvidia graphics card and not be able to like use it fully in Linux or something like that.
Well, I think what they were trying to do is make it so you could buy one at all again, because the crypto people made it so like anyone that was on the market would just instantly be bought up because they had the money to just turn those into money machines.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, like a noble attempt to make it possible for normal people to buy those again. But in the end, it seems like they might have signed up for some consequences that they didn't expect.
Yep.
All right, so over on my screen, if you don't like Vladimir Putin and you want a free website, now could be a good day for you. So Namecheap is offering free anonymous hosting and domains for websites criticizing the Russian government. Nice. So the process for doing this is a little confusing. It does say that you need to be located within Russia and Belarus, but if you were using a VPN, I feel like, you know, maybe that would still work out. And you have to use its online ticketing system. It seems like you can't like talk to their chat right now, but they went the additional step of banning customers from Russia. So if you have a Russian domain, this is the email that you got. Dear, just dear. Unfortunately, due to the Russian war crimes and human rights violations, your account, blah, 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 you need to change it by March 6th, 2022. So they said that, you know, tough nuts. Like, if you don't like it, then just get off Namecheap. And it seems as though, yeah, Namecheap is definitely taking a pretty hard stand against Russia on this one, offering a platform for people who might otherwise be punished in order to sound off about what they don't like about the Russian regime. And also kicking off Russian customers from their service wholesale. Pretty aggressive and straightforward move.
Yeah.
All right, Alex.
Sure. Okay. NFTs, we love them, don't we?
Oh yes, NFTs are great.
All right. So apparently, with the advent of Facebook's metaverse, there's expected like stuff to happen with cryptocurrency, NFTs, and stuff like that, which I honestly don't know too much about. But it seems they're already facing a sophisticated amount of cryptocurrency attacks that's targeting them, specifically different types of phishing. So there's like fake sites that are being put up that look like various metaverse sites or something like that, but people are getting like scammed out of their NFTs or cryptocurrency or whatever. I honestly don't know too much of the details, and I honestly don't empathize.
Wow.
But I thought that was pretty funny.
Yeah.
And honestly, they're just going for like the lowest hanging fruit, because like lots of people are trying to just like jump in on this fad. And a lot of these people don't know too much about like securing some of the assets that they have, especially like in a weird cyberspace like the metaverse that's completely new.
All right, so if we switch over to my screen, there is probably my favorite hacktivist groups in terms of name. I believe they're known as NB65,
Nice.
Which is they have a backronym that's like Network Brigade 65, but NB is for non-binary. If you guys didn't get the joke, because the Russian military certainly did not, and went on to call them scammers and petty swindlers, which I think is really funny if you can get in like an NB joke and then also get the Russian government to officially call you a scammer and a swindler. That actually, you could put that on your resume in the United States. But anyway, so there was a report from NB65 that they had like done something to the Russians' ability to access their spy satellites over Ukraine. This was reported on Twitter and immediately got a response from the Russian government that was a little bit confusing. They initially just said that they would consider any cyber attack targeting Russian satellite infrastructure to be an act of war. But as Russians have figured out a long time ago, it's really hard to declare war on an anonymous hacking group that you can't prove where they are. So kind of works both ways, huh? In this case, it looks like Russia is claiming that this did not happen, nothing was disrupted, but if it did, they would go to war. And then they also said like a couple of things that kind of sort of made it sound like maybe they did breach it. They also went on to request a bunch of new conditions on any satellite launches that were coming out of Russia, including making sure that they were not ever going to be used for any military purpose. And this, of course, is not going over well with the governments who are launching these satellites. So a big kind of showdown with the Russian satellite and space industry seems to be looming over both hacking and then the ability to access space for mixed use satellites.
Nice. I actually followed them on Twitter, and I was following along with some of the threads that I thought were pretty interesting. There were like some nuclear facilities and also various things orchestrating like satellites or whatever that were just like using default credentials on like Windows servers and stuff like that. But yeah, they have a pretty good feed on Twitter that I was checking out the other day.
Yeah, so if you want to check out an interesting, I guess, like hacktivist group, you can check out, as you can see on Alex's screen, NB65 on Twitter.
Yeah, pretty great.
Well, let's say the name is great. What they're it's still probably very legal. Okay, so over on my screen, we have a pretty distressing thing that does not surprise me in the least based on some presentations I have sat through on the state of security and medical devices. So do you know how long it takes a medical device to be approved?
No clue. Probably a long time though.
A long time. So by the time a medical device that has any sort of like smart technology in it is actually approved, it has accrued so many critical vulnerabilities that it should be considered very, very vulnerable. And this is just on average, but that is because a lot of these medical devices are never updated. And a lot of the companies that develop them end up going out of business. And then these can be like implants or other things that have very critical vulnerabilities that can be easily exploited that are physically implanted inside people or that people rely on for things that are very important, like an infusion pump. So some of these bugs are absolutely critical with scores of 9.8. That is really, really bad. And these bugs are things that are really, really simple to exploit. Some of them only require the attacker to be on the same network. And that is not a very tall order because anybody can plug in an Ethernet cable and boom, there you go. You could potentially plug into the Ethernet system of a hospital and run this and corrupt a lot of different stuff on some of these critical devices that would either render them not stable or unsafe to use or just not working at all. So if you haven't checked out how crazy the medical industry is when it comes to cybersecurity, especially when it comes to medical devices, it's way worse than you think. It's dark. So just another reminder that it's often worth it to ask about the state of cybersecurity in some of these businesses you might visit, like a hospital or something like that. I poke around all the time, and I often find things that I personally find really alarming, especially when it could lead to an attack that's focused on medical devices, or a network attack could spread to try to turn one of these into a botnet and end up just corrupting it instead. So lots of different attack vectors here for these old, vulnerable medical devices.
Dang. I run port scans on like every network I go on, but I could just imagine like being at a hospital and like, whoa, whoops, I just DDoS grandpa.
Yeah, exactly. No,
like, yeah, oh my God.
That would be terrible.
I also saw an awful one where there were like some sort of like bio eye implant things that like the people who initially created just like dropped support for. So like some people were just going blind because there's like no more support for that.
Yeah,
bio-optic thing.
It's a huge problem, like abandonware and then hardware that hasn't been updated since it was certified. You know, in order to make changes to this, you often need to recertify it or go through a whole new process that takes a really long amount of time. So if that's the case, then you could be sitting on these bugs for a really long time and literally not be able to do anything about it because you would have to get the devices recertified and they would never go to market. So there's something definitely wrong with the state of cybersecurity in medical devices. The more you look into it, the more depressing it is.
Dang.
All right, so this is not good. T-Mobile customers involved in a data breach are now at increased risk of data theft after that data ended up on the darknet for sale. So this is information like social security numbers, different businesses you've worked with, and other information that could allow any sort of scammer to get in touch with you and make it seem as though they've done business with you before. Now, imagine like an elderly person getting contacted by an assertive person who has their social security number, address, and business history asking for a past due bill or something else. They might be able to get the information they need to drain that person's account relatively easily with the right context. And that's what these data breaches really do. So it's pretty scary to see that sometimes these data breaches don't go away. You think that, you know, maybe it gets hit once and then they pay a ransom or something, but no, in some cases, the hackers who steal this data really want to make more money on it later. So even if the company pays the ransom, if they don't pay an additional amount, they will leak the customer information and cause problems like this, where, you know, people who maybe don't have a lot of great skills when it comes to technical stuff, but do know how to scam over the phone, can buy this data and use it in order to make even more money. Now, an interesting piece of malware out this week is one of the most advanced backdoors that China has deployed against targets. And in this case, it's a strain of malware that's specifically made to go after hardened corporate environments that might have more advanced monitoring and other features designed to make it more difficult to infiltrate them. So this malware is interesting because, and it's so far being called Daxin, it hides in legitimate network traffic by looking for patterns in the way that traffic is sent already, and then mimicking those patterns and kind of riding it as like a piggyback in order to exfiltrate information and get in touch with the C2 server. So it's very careful in the way that it emulates traffic and watches first before it does anything in order to help disguise in heavily monitored environments things that would otherwise get it caught. So hijacking TCP communications. There's a lot of real like interesting stealth moves that have been programmed into this in order to make it more autonomous, easier to communicate with other infected devices, and to overall spread the infection. So stands out just because it's a more advanced piece of malware that's designed to be sneakier and deployed in higher risk environment. And this has also been linked to, I really like the diversity in like hacking names that are just assigned to these random state groups. This group is called Slug, aka Owl Proxy. Which one do you like better?
I like Slug.
Yeah. All right. So Slug has reportedly been deploying these attacks against telecommunication companies, transportation, and manufacturing sectors. And this is mostly seems to be related to cyber espionage, just breaking in, spying, and getting any sort of industrial advantage that's possible.
Dang.
Right?
Last week we looked at one where I forget what they were attacking. It was like some sort of like military related group in the United States, but they like embedded some sort of like malware or God, I forget what it was, but also Chinese related.
Mm. Yeah, especially with defense contractors.
Oh yeah, that's exactly what it was.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So last up on companies supporting Ukraine, Cisco joined Microsoft and other companies by stopping sales to Ukraine and otherwise not providing services. So this is obviously going to be pretty disruptive to anybody who relies on Cisco. And of course, there's lots of companies that are also trying to make it difficult for Russia to continue to operate while they are in conflict with Ukraine. So again, really encouraging to see companies standing up and not really worrying too much about the backlash on this, because as I saw personally, even mentioning this has caused a flood of comments to be directed at some of my social media channels. So obviously, if you stand up on this, you have to expect some sort of retaliation because people are getting kind of mad about it.
It's hard to like make any commentary without it being like polarized or yeah, it's kind of sucks.
Yeah. So last up, the Conti ransomware source code was leaked by a Ukrainian researcher. And in addition to the source code, there was a lot of other information that was leaked as well. So, all right, we're going to give you guys some inside scoop here. This hasn't been posted yet, but this is from the Varonis Threat Lab's analysis of the leaked chats and leaked information from the Conti ransomware team. So this is going to be released on the Varonis blog next week. So if you want to check it out, make sure to go to the Varonis blog and check out the threat update page. And it's going to be talking about kind of what this disgruntled official leaked and what it means about the group. So everything from the group's management, the salary, the way that they're divided, and the way that they divvy up the resources. So one of my favorite breakdowns was how many people they have tasked on OSINT and what that OSINT group does. So this OSINT group actually comes up with a list of potential targets using Shodan and other tools in order to identify vulnerable organizations and then supports ongoing attacks by letting the threat actors who are actually doing the communications and the operation of the ransomware know exactly how much money the company they're negotiating with has. So there's multiple examples in here of negotiations going on where the OSINT team is going in and finding public financial data in order to force the target to admit that they have enough money to pay the ransom. But you can see the number of people involved in this organization is relatively large. You have 62 people in the main group, 23 people in the reverse group, 6 people in the new coder. I don't know what reverse is, but that's apparently like separate.
I figure that's like reverse engineering or something. I wouldn't know what that is.
Maybe. But there's also no just like engineering group. So I feel like reverse like might be the engineering group and reverse is maybe the reverse. Who knows? But you can see that like the salaries are looking like they would come to around $2 million a year all told. And it's just interesting to see like what kind of infrastructure they use. And also there's some discussion here about using third parties to accumulate access to different detection systems so they can see whether or not their stuff works on it. So here you can see that they were having a hard time getting access to Carbon Black. So they sent cryptocurrency over to a third party who purchased it for them and gave them access. So interesting to see also that they were kind of honing their malware against some of the best products out there for detecting it in order to make sure that they were able to slip past it. So really, really interesting. If you want to check this out again, should be coming out tomorrow or maybe by Monday, but we'll probably be going over it again coming up pretty soon.
think it's interesting because like they also recently, as you can see, started aligned with the Trickbot malware group. But also like in this leak, they included like I think like the source code for the malware that they were using and stuff like that, and it's like publicly released now. But people that are like doing malware reverse engineering that doesn't like offer a lot of value to them, but there is some concern that's been voiced that like people are going to find ways to rehash this like now sort of open source malware that was used by this high profile group, and then find ways to like spin it into their own attacks.
Yeah. It was showing here there was a lot of overlap with Trickbot as well.
Yeah, I think they like bought it out or something, or they're like working together or something or another. Yeah.
Yeah, so really interesting to see some of the analysis that is coming out of the leaked data around the Conti ransomware group. So stay tuned for more information about that. Just wanted to give a little bit of a preview into that because that is something that the Varonis threat group is going to be coming out with relatively soon. Okay, so I think that is all the time we have for news today. If you have any questions based on the news that we have been talking about, please make sure to leave them on the YouTube channel, and we will make sure to answer them on the Tuesday stream. Alex, thank you for joining us again to talk about the news, and we will see all of you next time. Bye.